How
Hey
about you,
guys,
Tyler?
welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast. Sorry we're a little late today. I I'm at a conference right now, so I couldn't get back to my hotel room in time because of traffic and just getting out of the conference into the car took a little longer than we thought. So apologize on that one. How's everybody doing tonight?
It's go.
We uh we had a guest lined up and he was had to cancel on us. The gentleman from Vortex Brewing, he'll be joining us on an upcoming episode next week. Tentatively, we have. Why don't we do introductions? Um, we'll do that first. I'll say I pronounce it right. How are you guys doing tonight, Roger and Hogmaster?
Been a pretty good few days for me. Just same old. Just got back really hot after the hurricane, but we're getting a nice 70 degrees nights. I can't wait for my tomatoes to start blooming again. It's right about that time when they're going to go nuts, and I'm going to get a bunch of nice tomatoes and peppers here to store up. Not to get off the cannabis tip too much, but that's what's going on with me. Trying to stay alive. Over to you, David.
Going good on this end as well. Wish it would actually cool off here though, but it's like 90 the past 2 days and supposed to get hotter the next two. But working on the forum and enjoying life.
Awesome. Tentatively, we have for next week Jeff Lowenfels, the author of Teaming with Microbes. So that'll be a really cool episode. Also, wanted to plug this weekend. We have the Aquaponic Cannabis class in Half Moon Bay. You can also take that online as well. You can get to the link in the description or go to potentponks.com or check out ouroborosfarms.com if you're interested in coming to the class on this Saturday and Sunday. So that'll be great. So what has everyone been up to? Why don't you go first there, Roger? What have you been up to this past week?
That's pretty much it. I think I kind of just said that. I'm preparing for my winter vegetable grow and just pretty much running the forum, dealing with life.
The hurricane, didn't you?
Yeah, we had to. Well, we're doing a little bit of cleanup, and like I said, it's been hot since there. So basically, I'm going through I'm starting all my fall season. So I'm starting to do that kind of thing, pruning back some tomato plants that have been kind of suffering during the really hot period of time. And and of course, everything, they got blown all to hell in the hurricane. I got a little greenhouse that I got squashed between my old Cadillac and a trailer that somehow I got moved over there, and it looks like somebody just threw it in the. So I got a greenhouse about 6 foot deep, got picked up and smashed between a car and a trailer. So we're just cleaning up stuff like that and dealing with, because of the fact that it's gotten so hot and humid again, and just can't keep up with the weeds. That's about it. Kind of keep up with the fauna. Did we? He's muted.
Oh, yeah, he's unmuting himself.
I got crickets.
Hey, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, brother.
Can I? I just hope the thing doesn't mess up if I'm going to get reverb in here with Steve. Boy, we've been
mute my mic.
We've been going like a house of fire, my son and I, trying to get some paperwork done, and we've been traveling around a bit. Pretty exciting. We've got some sample things together, and are up here touring at this cannabis business event. My son and I took the what do you call them? The extraction classes, manufacturing rules and regulations related to that. It was really good info. I got some footage when I have a chance. As soon as I can, I'll get it pushed up on Old Fart Bros if anybody wants to see it. Got an interview with the guy from Spectrum King, Brandon, there. So having fun, chasing things around. We have excitement heading up for a class up in Half Moon and meeting people and sharing some of the exciting stuff that's been going on with some folks we've been away from for a while. So that's about it.
That's pretty cool. Oh, yeah. Well, I want to, go ahead. Go ahead.
Why don't you tell them some of the cool stuff you saw there? You cool talks with some people there, especially people at Evo and stuff like that. Had some cool stuff.
Yeah. There was besides just the classes, which were, I mean, kind of crazy to kind of go through them here just on the podcast thing, but there was a lot of vendors there. One of the vendors that I really saw that I thought was pretty intriguing is they have a trailerable kind of storage container, big old steel tank that is completely set up within the fire code regulations to be doing extraction work in there. So that was kind of nice to see that there's a turnkey solution that you can just, have there, it's all certified by an engineer. There were a lot of people that were starting to get into packaging. That was really nice to see, because I remember, not too long ago, getting packaging done was just impossible. And it seems like a lot more folks are concentrating on that. And this is like all the vendors that were on the outside. Spectrum King was there, a friend of the show. It was really nice to see him and his crowd there. They had a whole bunch of lights lined out. I think maybe Steve covered some of that on his live stream. If anybody hasn't seen it, go back and see that. All kinds of vendors there. There was investment kinds of folks there, insurance for the industry. So it's real business oriented, kind of business to business setup, rather than I've been to another event and it was just like a bunch of vendors just getting free dabs out to everybody for signing up for their dispensary, kind of a thing. So it's much nicer to see the focus of it. Steve, I know, got to attend some stuff on pesticides and other stuff with cultivation, but it's nice to be able to go in two different directions at once. Pretty good event. And at the end of the event, if you made it through all the classes, you got a free drink. How good is that? To go to a weed event, there's not a joint to be seen anywhere. And at the end of a weed event, they give you a free drink. That was the only thing that was weird. That's just my opinion. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, okay?
There's a ton of people on edibles there, though. There's a couple booths selling edibles, and there's people definitely eating edibles everywhere.
Oh, I didn't see the booth selling edibles. Okay.
Yeah, it was Terp Zone or Terp Town or some shit like that.
Oh, okay. I just see a lot of the terp stuff, and I just kind of tune it out because of it's just all buzz lately, and there's so many other things to focus on. But cool. So yeah, that's about that. I'll go ahead and hit my mute thing. I'll try anyway.
I was gonna say, is there anything else? You got a chance to look at a bunch of different extraction equipment. You want to talk about that for a minute? They had a bunch of CO2 stuff, and and they had some cool. They had a, not that it's something that we're going to be using, but there's a pretty interesting and complex automated short pass. Or is that what that was? The root, whatever.
No, that was a thin film coil, and it works on wiper blades. There's a couple of different ways to further process your hash oils after you've done maybe like a BHO extraction or maybe an ethanol extraction, however you're gathering whatever molecules you're after. And then after winterizing, depending on the way you extracted it, there are these machines that can kind of separate out more of the goop from the goody stuff. And some of them are like pretty badass. Like they'll get them like 99 point whatever % there. So it's spot on. It's pretty cool stuff. But this one machine, Root Sciences, great machine. Very, very impressive when you see the whole thing set up. It's just like, if everybody wasn't watching, you'd be caressing the pipes on the back of this thing. It's a really, really nice piece of stainless and glass and chillers and temperature control things and jackets and wires and things that go beep. I mean, just, a lamb bitch's wet dream. So it's like $160,000, but man, this machine was tits. But as good as it is, it's not good at even separating the THC from the CBD. It's pretty much just like a machine that you would just run stuff just for making vape pens and kind of like nothing else. But if that's what you're doing, it was a good machine. It was definitely a good machine for that. I'm interested in things that you can do more varied stuff with, or dial different molecule groups or separate stuff a little more precisely. But was a really great machine. There was some CO2 extraction stuff there. Good machines there for CO2 extraction. CO2 extraction definitely has its place. There's depending on the applications, it can be like the best way to go. You just have to kind of generally start from your end product, what you're trying to do, and go backwards into what maybe solvents you would use to get what you're after. But if you're after CO2, they had some good representation there. I don't have all the details in my head, but I'm sure Steve could put a link to the site, and you can see some of the different vendors that were there supporting this educational event. The education side was really groovy. I definitely think it was totally worth it. What other machines were there? A lot of labeling automation for packaging was there. There were people who do lab stuff. A couple different vendors had like a little bit of glassware for sale or something like that, but the toys were there. Yeah, I just remember the drop it out of the helicopter rogue lab thing. It's like a little bomb bunker. They just drop off. It's all there. I remember that thing the most. That was kind of fun toy. Another thing they had was things that will weigh out certain size piles of flour, and it will weigh it out and then drop it into a bag. For doing that there, I thought that was pretty interesting. That's kind of what I remember at this point. I'm a little bit stoned.
You didn't take any pictures, huh?
I got him a little high.
Yeah, that thing's like from Babylon 5. That's the shadows there.
That's unbelievable.
It works great. It works great.
Yeah, we went to the dispensary, the supply store, and it was pretty great.
Looks like I got a 5-pound bucket on it.
When you can get stuff at wholesale, you can get something ridiculously large like that for very, very cheap. So that was great.
Totally worth going out to 90-degree heat to get it.
Yep. Yeah, it's not in the easiest place, but it was a lot of people's bowls. Let me put it that way. For that rig, because I got it at wholesale. Ooh, Marty joined us.
Yeah, I was going to say that Marty joined us, I believe. Well, kind of. His plant, his grow room.
Yep. So, I thought the show was pretty cool. They had a really cool time. I got to spend time with you guys. Ever listen to Swami? Swami seeds. It's like a
heard of them.
Yeah, so we got a chance to hang out with him today and talk with him. Gave him some of our edible powder. It was freaking great. That guy's awesome. So I talked to him. He wants to do like a joint collaborative thing on our show, so we'll be able to get him on as a guest, and maybe we'll go be guests on his show on a following one. He was super interested to talk to us about the aquaponic stuff, so that'll be really cool. He's just up in Mendo, so that'll be really neat. So that was a lot of fun. We kind of randomly stumbled into him after the keynote, so that was cool. And then they had some cool information about what's coming for the regulations in California. Anyone that's trying to do a business in California knows how much of a three-ring circus it is trying to keep up with all the different regulations and rules and all the different bullshit that you have to deal with. It's just insane, completely insane. So, and then having to deal with a whole bunch of local governments and all that, and just making sure that you're have somebody there at all the meetings, or try to be at the meetings yourself, or and then to make sure that they're not trying to go follow someone's ridiculous advice and end up in some weird situation, or pass some really silly rules that aren't really backed up by anything, or singling out your market, or any of the other 1,000 things that Marty and I have both complained about multiple times about local government decisions when it comes to cannabis ordinances.
I thought that's all they did.
Yeah, really?
Like that's
All
their
they did is put up roadblocks, right?
it sounds like their mission statement.
Well, so for instance, one of the townships we're considering in wanted to do flower sales only, of only flower produced on the property. And then we had to point out to the city council, is like, you guys do realize that most medical patients use concentrates or edibles, right? So you're literally making this exclusively for the recreational smoker, which is the opposite of what the intent is that you guys have proposed. So if you guys are trying to open up some for the medical market and the recreational market, you have to include this, guys. Like, not to mention you're cutting off 65% of the income. But regularly you have to deal with these things where you just have to explain to these people that just have never dealt with cannabis and go, look, I appreciate where you're coming from, but for business reasons, this is why, this doesn't make sense, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Point taken.
So that was that, and then California's hopefully going to have their regulations out by early November. They're going to start accepting applications for California stuff at the end of October, it looks like. They're going to have 3 different websites depending on what type of license you're applying for, so that you can sign up for your license online, and then you can print out a copy of your license from your own printer, which I thought was freaking awesome. None of this stuff, they'll just, they'll pre-approve you for a temporary license, assuming you have your local permits and all, and then in order. And then if you do, then they'll come in and they'll do your full evaluation after that. So it was nice to get some guidance on that after just, months and months of very little information. It was nice to hear from someone from the state. So that was really good after, I think last week I went on a little rant about that. So
They had several people from the state there.
I have to think that there's a million people trying to do that, and that's probably why it takes so long too, Steve. It's not just
it's not that, it's the lack of communication while they're doing it. I wish they would at least release the outline structure so that I have something to plan around.
Right.
Like, for instance, they still haven't made a formal announcement if they're going to allow manufacturing on the same property as cultivation. I need to know how many properties we need to do manufacturing and cultivation.
Right.
I don't know if I need 1 property, or if I need 2 properties. If it's 2 properties, I need double the amount of security. It's just a whole long line of business stuff.
I got it on tape. I got it on
How much
tape
money
from the
we
guy
need to
from the
raise.
state that they're planning on allowing the vertical.
Awesome.
Hey, I got it on tape, and we'll get it posted up on Old Fart. We can post it up here if you want it there too.
Awesome. That'd be great.
But that can change tomorrow.
Exactly. That's the other thing. Literally, it's like every
No kidding. I know.
It's maddening. Every 2 weeks something's different, and it's just like sooner or later this stuff has to end.
Sooner or later.
In fire.
But it'll all end here at the end of the year once they get the final set of rules, and it's just
I think it's
you're
going to
in
have to be
the
federally.
of just trying to figure out what.
I think that's the only way you're going to get it, is to have it federally legal, or at least descheduled to start with. Fucks everything up. It totally removes your ability to fight it with the legal system on any sort of federal level. So basically all they have to do is escalate it far enough, then you're fucked because it's still federally legal. So
Right. Same old.
California government formally pushed to make it lobby to reschedule it to the federal government this week, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's lots of people that are trying, like what's his name, Booker or whatever.
Cory Booker.
What's his name? I can't remember. The senator that's.
Booker and Rand. I
don't remember.
Rand Paul is also a bill.
Yeah. Anyway, hopefully they get something done, but I think that's what it's going to take.
So I got a chance to go see the dudes over at Spectrum King. They have a super cool booth there. They have some cool lights. They're really cool. So I got some footage of that. If you check out that video from earlier, they went through and showed all their different lights. So that was cool. They also showed off their new power bank and light controller. I thought that was super slick. The fact the whole thing is integrated, you can go up to 40 lights per bank. I thought that was really trick with one centralized controller. Looks like a little server case. It's pretty sleek. What else do they have there? It was really cool. I'm really impressed with some of the different technology, like extractor stuff that was there. It was pretty neat. I've never seen that large scale before, especially that. Was that the thin film? Was it that funky one? Yeah, they had a thin film there, which was pretty chippy. So I'd never seen one of those in person, so that was kind of cool to see. I went to a couple of different cultivation seminars. They touched on energy usage, touched on pesticides and the state. I guess California has 64 compounds that they're going to be looking for in the beginning. And once they can get that stable, they'll probably increase it to 100 or 120 things that they're looking for. But they're going to do it in phases so that everyone can get used to this. It's pretty interesting. Similar to Oregon and Colorado, except California's list is going to be even smaller. So if you hated the first one, get ready. What else was there? Interesting talk on cannabis as a commodity and how that's going to handle. There was a guy there who thought for some reason he's going to continue to get $60 an eighth for flower, which I thought was kind of just comical after watching that happen in Colorado. You can't get more. You're just not, the market doesn't support it. Sorry, dude. So that was interesting. And he was kind of a more well-known guy. I didn't really understand where he was coming from. But other than that, they had some really cool, interesting points on commodity and how they generally expect the price of cannabis to increase once California legalizes, at least on the legal level for a while. At least 18 months to 18 to 24 months. Well, here's the deal. No. It was very well put because, listen, 88% of the cannabis in the state of California won't pass current testing that they're proposing for next year.
Steve, like everybody else,
not one of the near. Did I cut out? Is the internet connection shit here? Because I'll switch devices.
Yeah, it started getting really bad against Steve. You really you roboted out, Victor. You are, as Tommy would say, you are all too hell for a while.
All right, I thought it was just me there for a second.
No. I was across the room. I had to do something. I'm sorry. I was across the room when I heard it start up.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yep.
All right. For whatever reason, the internet here is bouncing around a little. If it gets bad, I'll switch to my phone. So it was interesting to see how they, the testing regimen that they're proposing, which is part
it's lost. Didn't hear a word. Didn't hear the last 2 or 3 sentences you said. It's lost. Sorry.
All right.
Sorry, Bubba. But you want to get your point out, and it's not getting out. So.
Yeah, it was real bad.
We got you back, though. Just think about that. You went to listen to it later, and you couldn't even hear a word you said, for like an hour. It'd be kind of trippy. How's it going, Marty?
Pretty good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Well, how's the baby?
Oh, she's good. I was just she was just sleeping on me, so that's why I was a little bit late. I wasn't sure what time we get rolling, and so I was playing bedtime. So,
yeah.
But she's doing good, getting big, all that, and yeah.
I didn't think we'd see you tonight, but I guess it's kind of like after bedtime now, so you got a little free time to get out to yourself. Huh.
Yep, did bedtime beforehand, so now I'm out in the garage, so I don't keep anybody awake.
Yeah, got the doors locked and all. Yeah.
Trying to catch up on all my gardening. All my plants are grown up into the light and all kinds of shit. So I had shit to do anyway.
Love it. Just love it.
You guys.
Yeah. Hey, Steve. Welcome back, brother. I saw you double screened us for a second, but nothing blew up like when I do it.
Oh, hey, and fingers crossed. We heard today that somebody's supposed to be putting in an offer on our house tomorrow morning. They're supposed to get it signed and finalized and stuff today. So hopefully we'll get that and be able to put in an offer on another piece of property that we can try and start jumping through our own hoops to get licensed. So we'll
that'll
see
be
how
cool.
that goes. Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Good news.
So, and it's also kind of neat because I'm going to look at one tomorrow that I think is going to work out pretty well. It's got a big field already and a house there. The house is, it's not the greatest, but the guy says that he'll put in new floors and kind of a bunch of stuff to fix it up beforehand. So, and really, it's the property that you want. It's zoned properly. It's almost 6 acres, and just a nice big flat field out past behind the house, and great southern exposure. I mean, pretty much maximum sun. So. Pretty excited, honestly. Hopefully it'll work out. At least if the house is livable, after a couple of harvests, I can just build another one, and we'll be good to go.
That sounds like a cool place. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll throw up some pictures and stuff if we actually get it all together. I have a couple of backup properties too that are still zoned properly, and they'll require a little bit more work to get going. Might have to take out some trees or figure out a couple of things. It won't be quite as easy to get rolling, but I have some options in my price range, I think. So either way, we should be able to get something going, hopefully sooner rather than later, but we'll see.
You guys hear me now? Is that good?
You're quiet.
Yeah, but is that my voice shouldn't cut out anymore because it's a different device, different internet.
Yeah, it sounds fine. It was so quiet, it was hard to tell how, but it sounds fine so far. Speak up a little.
Okay, I'll just have to talk a little louder.
Yeah, that's good, bro.
Scream into the mic, Steve. Scream.
So, sorry to interrupt your train. If you remember what you were talking about, Steve?
Yeah, so basically they were saying that there's a lot of people that are failing pesticide testing because they're next to agricultural grows, where they're spraying all kinds of stuff onto the plants, and then the wind drift is pushing their parts per million above anything, or even the air intakes. If you don't have really good, clean air intakes into your greenhouses, you can suck in pesticides from blowing off from upwind and totally screwing your crop. You're going to see a lot of that in the Central Valley. It's going to be almost impossible to grow in the Central Valley.
Wow. I can just imagine the kind of filtration you'd have to have in a greenhouse. And you say that, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm going, so I would have to design this, to do this, for the filtration. Woo! Yeah, glad I'm still over here.
Welcome to the cannabis industry.
Well, it might be that way over here, too. I don't know. But a lot of our farms have kind of gone by the wayside, because it's been so hard to grow corn in the last few years with the climate and the things that have been going on. And it was corn, tobacco, and cotton, and now it's pretty much tobacco's gone to the way of corn, and they're trying to find other alternative crops. So, yeah, that's kind of All right, so go on. All right, so filtration is going to be really highly necessary for any kind of business growing operation you're going to do. That's good that they're getting a guideline out for that and telling you what they're going to um, outlaw, like ban, like it won't be able to be, because that's what I was bringing up. I watch shows where they actually, in certain areas back, now we've come a few years since you had California legalization for medical marijuana and caregivers and the 99 plants and all that. But I had seen where there were shows or documentation on the fact that there's some of the pharmacies would not allow things. Now, I'm not sure how far they went with any kind of how they could test for pesticide, but that's very interesting that they're going that far. And I mean, that's the way it should be. If it's going to be medicine, you should expect to have to go through that process if you want to be legit, I guess. I don't know if that steps on people's toes. Or you think it's going to make it so hard it's going to be impossible? Is that your point of view on it? Because maybe I'm missing something. I'm going, it's good to police it, but
any article that you read that said California has a glut of weed is full of shit, because you can't sell any of it on the market coming up soon.
So it's a matter of fact they're over regulating, you think?
No, I don't think they're over regulating. I think that's a legitimate concern. I mean, you
good.
need to not have pesticide residue that's testing above these levels that they have reason to think is going to cause health issues. Cannabis doesn't cause health issues. Okay, we know that.
Right.
If you spray it with some weird shit, it might. And then what's going to happen? They're going to blame it on cannabis, and it's going to derail the whole industry. So I'd rather they do it now, put the regulations in place, and let us know, rather than doing it a couple months in and fucking everything up.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were getting at, but I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, but because you said you came out, what did you say, 64? They're going to test for 69 different
64 chemicals, I think, was initially.
64 chemicals. So
they're going to have a white list of pesticides that you can use. As directed, you're fine.
And is that going to take? Go ahead.
Personally, I'm not as worried about. I mean, I think they should test for the chemicals. Obviously, like, to me, that's kind of a no-brainer. But one of the things that we ran into in Oregon was a lot of their testing for mold and mildew wasn't really like testing for just mold and mildew. It was like basically any living organism. So like, let's say you used like kombucha or labs or something like that, then basically any living organism gets picked up, and then you get a living organism count. And that's essentially people that were growing with an increased microbial count were failing, even though there's obviously there's no mold on it you could find whatsoever. So there are some downsides to it. And I think just getting proper testing is really the best way to avoid all that, because you just have to have them identified. Like, it just requires a person with a brain and a microscope in 10 fucking minutes. So it's not, it was more incompetency than it was anything else, but it led to a lot of good products, testing bad for mold or mildew, when really there was no mold or mildew at all whatsoever. It was just other living organisms that showed up on their tests. So that there are other downsides to testing besides, it sounds all great on paper, but you got to get the right tests, and a lot of times they don't.
Right. Well, it will legitimize things a bit.
To address that, they're going to test just for mycotoxin. So this way you can run compost teas, and because actually two of the speakers from the cultivation, they asked specifically about that because they're very pro-microbial, just like we are on the plants during growth. So they're like, are we going to fail because we're above total CFUs? And they're like, well, we've had that concern heavily brought to us, and we're actually looking into tests for specific mycotoxins. Whether or not they actually do that with the final bill, I don't know. But they did say that they're trying to address it in that manner, because that's the much more responsible way to address it. Look for the metabolites that are actually a problem, and then you don't have to know what microbe is what. You're just testing for those compounds and say, well, you're testing for a pesticide, and just makes it simple. And the other cool thing that they brought up is that there's about 8 or 9 terpenes that they can see that spike on the gas chromatographer and on the other HPLC, and they still have yet to actually identify those or how to isolate them or what temperature or whatever else. So, and those are just ones that haven't even been addressed at all. And those could be just important as THC or CBD or CBN or THCA or whatever, and they just don't even know. So the other thing was pretty cool to learn is terpenes, when you do pure terpenes, behave much more similar to like a hydrocarbon or something like that. And it's not good for you to smoke pure terpenes. Not good for you at all. Yeah, and you don't want anything much above a 20% ratio. Anything above that, and you're actually doing detrimental to your lungs rather than something that's synergetic. So I wasn't aware of that. It was pretty cool. The science panel they had on the testing stuff was really, really interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, let me throw one thing in there too. They were talking about the testing and how tenacious some of the things that are used in the industry actually wind up being when they concentrate. So they have a case where they took clones and they dipped the clones. I can't remember in what. Eagle 20 was the bad one. So they just dipped a clone in this. They grew the entire plant out. So you've lost all those leaves that were there. They grew the entire plant out. And so the entire plant was still above legal limits. Clone. They can find it. It's just unbelievable how much some of this stuff sticks onto the plant or into the plant when you're going to concentrate it. So as an extractor, you have no idea how excited I am to be able to run Steve's stuff, because put the cooties on it. It's just, I'll take some microbes, but to mold killer to stay in there after the entire plant has grown of too high a concentration. That's freaky. That's just freaking me out. Maybe is it just me, or does it freak you guys out too?
Well, any of the fungicides would say like brutal, they have to be fungicides.
Well, it's nice that they've outlawed it now, or at least brought it to where everybody should know not to use it.
Well, the biggest one is mycobutanol. Mycobutanol is the active ingredient in a lot of antifungals heavily used in agriculture. And mycobutanol, if you digest it or eat some of it, is fine.
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't hurt you at all. It's totally benign.
Don't cook it.
For a long time. But the
Don't
moment you
cook
it,
Oh no.
it turns into
poison. Gonna fuck your day.
And
yeah.
I don't think you need to think like a rocket scientist.
No.
Really don't want to breathe in.
That's Beavis and Butthead stuff there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be breathing in hydrogen cyanide. But the other thing is, that the plant naturally has a small amount of a different compound that breaks into hydrogen cyanide in a small amount, which they brought up in the panel, which was kind of interesting. I didn't know.
Huh.
Can't remember again. It'll come to when I'm just about to fall asleep.
Yeah,
that's when I remember shit
Tommy
like that.
is lit.
Yeah. This is a serious death.
The other thing that was interesting, they had a big emphasis on, was insurance. They had a lot of different insurance people there, and it was just interesting to hear about how much that's going to cost, and
how much it can help you.
Oh yeah.
So that you're not running afoul of the fire marshal, and the inspectors, keep coming in.
Yep. That was also really cool.
Crop loss? Are they going to let you have crop loss insurance?
I doubt that one.
Came in and I lost my crop because they smoked.
All this weed, but I had to burn it.
Just angry.
Oh man.
Forced to destroy it.
Of course, I stayed in the room to make sure it really burned. How big was the beer they handed out there?
What's that? This one?
Said, how big
I
was the
finally
beer?
figured it out. It's because are you guys in the same hotel room or whatever?
Yes.
Me and Tommy.
That's why it's echoing. Okay, yeah. One of you have to mute unless you're talking. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going crazy.
I can do that. Sorry about that. Yeah, we've been having.
Well, if you're really high, it probably sounds really cool. Whoa.
I've never seen so many labeling companies and packaging companies at an event before, so that was kind of a newer, interesting thing. Didn't see any rosin presses anywhere, which was interesting as well.
Kind of odd.
Yeah.
Really? That with the way? Wow, it seemed like a phenomenon. That's weird. That they wouldn't have that.
Rosin's kind of not that, for whatever reason, in SoCal. People love to buy it, but it's just not a thing in the industry commercially or whatever. I don't know. If you're in SoCal, there you go. Now you know what to do. Get a rosin press. So, what else did they have there that was interesting? A bunch of companies that were like brokers that have like online brokerages for getting material to producers and growers to retail and all that shit.
Oh, cool.
Marketing firms, huh?
Yeah, not marketing firms. It's kind of like a wholesale retail portal. You know, vendors can list and then buyers can buy and make a little commission in between. What else? I don't know. There was a guy that had an interesting name that was similar to the new company that I haven't been able to talk to you guys about yet. So that was kind of funny. Oh, I had a funny story. So this guy comes up behind me, and grabs me and spins me around, and I'm thinking it's one of my buddies or whatever, and here, this guy goes, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were this guy that owed me a bunch of money." And I was like, "Nope, not him." So he kind of apologized, and I was like, "Here, don't feel bad." So I gave him a little sample of our powder, with our business card, and the guy was kind of taken aback by that because he was feeling kind of embarrassed, and that was really funny. Well, half a day goes by, I bump into him after one of the seminars. The guy goes, "That stuff's amazing. That's the best thing I've had in a long time. I'm so glad I came up and ambushed you earlier. I feel really bad about it, but now I feel great." It was really funny.
How cool.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
So that was that. I don't think there was anything else. I did get a chance to talk a little bit more with the dudes from Korea Light about all the schwazing. They strip their plants down 3 times during a grow. They feed at 22 to 2400 total ppms, which is insane. And they drop their high-end LED lights right on top of the deck, and I'm just like, how are these plants not dead? But they get crazy yields, so they're on to something. So it'd be interesting to do a side-by-side run where you do at least the schwazing. I don't know about overfeeding them to that level, but definitely.
I think that was invented. That was invented. I don't really believe they get a higher yield altogether. I think they get what they want, and what they're going for is they're going for uniformity in bud size. They want the same size bud they want every bud to be the same size. And by squeezing, they create that.
Total weight on the plants was insane. They had data, I'm taking these dudes 100% serious because these guys had, they had a whole binder of harvest data just to throw on the table, just to be like, look, here's all the hard data that you'd want. feeding levels, harvest weights, what the lights were, anything you'd want to know they had there, at least on display if you wanted to find out. That's why I was like, damn, this is great. You guys are putting the science where your mouth is, you don't see that often in the cannabis industry.
That's true.
So I'll give them my card. We'll see if they'll come on the show.
Cool.
So those guys are also with Medicine Man. So,
Well, see, there's something to be said as far as their nutrient, how potent the strength of the solution. At 2200, that's common in greenhouse hydroponics. Crop King, a major, an international giant greenhouse manufacturer, and they set up and send guys to your place, and you get a book, like you said, a whole binder of material, and they sometimes tell you to run up into 2000s, even sometimes 20. They'll give a dose of MKP 1 week at 2,500 parts per million. It's crazy.
Yeah, but you can't keep no microbes alive in that.
Well, no, you're not. It's a hydroponic grow, but I'm just saying there's a science behind a stronger nutrient solution. It's not necessarily going to be easy to bring those levels up for aquaponics, unless you got a shitload of fish, I guess.
Way more microbes and inject it into the plant at the same rate.
I didn't get that.
Oh, see, I'd rather run lower nutrients and higher microbial levels and inject it into the plant at a heavier rate.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying. You said they were running 2200. I say there's a science behind that. They do that with tomatoes and stuff like that. And
you'll end up with a headache. It gives you that headache, back of the head tightness. Yeah, they weigh a shit ton, but usually it tastes like shit.
Yeah, because a quarter of the weight is salt.
A quarter of the weight is fucking fertilizer.
Well, I got you. I agree. That I don't like to run that high either. I'm just talking about there's a long time science that they may have read or known. They were probably hydroponic in the first place. And
I'll take my fish shit.
Tommy and I could do that all day long on a straight hydro.
I've done it. I'll take my fish shit.
Not always, but if you feed it that heavy, you're gonna taste the fertilizer. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I agree.
No way you're gonna flush that.
That's right. That's why I went to real low.
I flush it like that guy up in Canada does, that Grandmaster level. Man, he flushes like Niagara Falls through his plants. Yeah, but yeah, if you have run of those, you just have to a couple weeks early just start flush.
Yep.
Well, it's just crazy. Everybody's got
their moisture. You have all that crazy moisture in there. You're not really letting the things get that chance to dry out like they
you risk root rotting them at the end.
Yeah. Well, I've been teaching.
Even I know that.
I've been teaching those hydroponic growers on the forums. I tell them don't run more than about 1,200, 1,500 maximum. That's what I was, because it got for that same reason. I tried those harder. In fact, I ran 1,500 for a few years, but you're right, you can never get the taste. So I started lowering down, and I find out if you use hydroponically, if you use 1,000 to 1,200, and you could do, because you are going to lose some yield, but again, it's bigger buds, a little more buds that taste like shit, or a little less yield, maybe 20% less yield, and you got buds that taste great. So that's just to throw out the ppm where I teach people to run at. So that's interesting. I don't know. I'm not sure what your total ppms are in your aquaponic setups. That might be interesting to segue to that for a minute.
Well, actually, we're gonna.
But you don't.
Gates Farm 215 asks in chat. Probably answered this question before. Have you ever used turtles? What are the pros and cons? So turtles you can use them, but they tend to be very nitrogen heavy because they're basically exclusive carnivores. So it can be a little bit hard to do that. You don't have to worry about the salmonella because plant roots will actually filter pathogens from the water. And this has been proven by UVA, University of Hawaii, University of Wisconsin's tests on this, where the plants, they introduced pathogens directly into the water system and reservoir and the fish in an aquaponic system, salmonella, E. coli. I forget what the other two were. Anyways, what they proved is that none of the plant tissue they tested in cucumbers, lettuce, tomatoes, and other crops ever tested positive for any pathogens. They always came up negative. And that in an aquaponics system, there's so many other microbes that they actively outcompete most of your other negative pathogens. They simply just get consumed, or they have to fight off a lot of other beneficial microbes in the system that just make it hard for them to really get by.
Okay, I was asking about the parts per million you ran, as opposed to cutting down, like when you were saying if you were going to run that much, you're going to get buds that taste like shit. I was asking y'all's opinion on what your ppm level would be for, say, hydroponics. If you were going to grow hydroponics, or you just don't think you can ever get it to grow or taste right.
I would do 1,400 to 1,800, something like that.
I can't hear it.
I'd be 1,400 to 1,800, something like that.
Oh, okay. So see, I tend to teach on the low side, but 1,500 is a pretty good range. Yeah, 12 to 1,500.
Yeah, I mean 1,100 to 1,400 would be where I'd mostly keep it.
Yeah,
but that's totally.
I find you get a good taste. It's easier to get a good taste.
I generally hate to talk in total ppms because I feel like it's not accurate.
Well, yeah, that's true too. I know, and that's what when I asked the question, I realized that you don't really go by ppms in aquaponics. It's all about different levels of the different minerals and how things are produced, as the aquaculture grows. So, sorry about that. It's kind of like it's a moot question, really. But so you feel like in the same kind of range. You don't get too heavy. I should see in big ass plants going to 1,800, but most people growing indoors when they're beginners, don't have big ass plants, and the stronger nutrients tend to get them in trouble more than a little lighter nutrient. So I kind of teach them like that, and then they do what they want to anyway. Because they're going to read their own stuff and just they're going to take basics and move on.
Okay.
Now, I didn't ask Steve that because I don't know shit. I just asked Steve for his opinion, y'all. And so, well, it's getting late over here on the East Coast.
What's new with you, Marty? Marty?
He's coming, I think.
Oh. Internet connection here blows.
He had to unmute. Marty.
Did we lose Steve again?
No,
Steve's having a problem.
My audio is here always. That's on the phone. But the internet, which is the picture, is...
I can't really hear Steve, so... It's like super quiet. You just have to look at my eyeball so I can hear him.
Oh, sorry. The internet here at the hotel sucks. Nice towels, though. What's new with you, Marty?
What's going on with me? I am just going through here and trying to trim up some of the shit that I probably should have trimmed up a while ago. And, yeah. That's pretty much it. Let me see if I can turn the camera around. All right, I think that kind of worked. You guys see?
Oh yeah.
So this is my little canopy, and when I came out, I hadn't been out here in a couple days because I've been really busy. So these are all grown up into the light, so I had to pull some of those back over, and I got some runners going up the back there, and some of these down here in the canopy are getting a little choked out, so I need to go through and trim up a lot of that and thin it out a lot, but it's coming along. I had a couple of them get all the way up into the light and crispified some leaves, but other than that, nothing too big. Now this is I I think Roger, you asked me about this light before, and we never got to talk about it. So
Oh yeah, okay.
you guys can take a peek at this. This is a light that veggie sent me. So this is a veggie V2, and it consumes, I think, right about 560 watts, something like that. And it's a little bit interesting in that it's a slightly different spectrum. That it still has the white ones, as you can see there, but it also has the red ones mixed in. So it sort of has the baseline that we hear Spectrum King talk about all the time, and then shifted slightly red or more red. So it's more like having a white with a, with like a red flower inducer. And it didn't seem to, I did veg under it and flower under it. So, I mean, it can be done, but I felt like veg was maybe a little bit slow, and that could be because a lot of the red. But other than that, it's been great, and veggie has been great too, because originally what they signed up for was a side by side, and I have two completely different strains. We talked about that before, and they've been totally cool about it, and so hats off to them, because that's awesome. And really, I really like the design of the light. If you guys look on my channel, there's a you can see it a little bit better than what I can show you right now. I think it'll probably get pretty dark up there, but it's essentially there's no fans, so it's all pretty much solid. I mean, you could spray this thing down. It's really heavy. Like putting it up by myself was actually took some coordinating. I wasn't able to just hold it up and slap the thing over the top, and so. It was it's definitely heavy and solid, and even though it replaced two of these LEDs over here, so it's technically two of these, I think something like 30 more watts or something like that, but this one runs cooler and produces more light than two of those combined. So the overall temperature in my room dropped 4 degrees, even though I increased the wattage being consumed. And so that just means a lot more of my power is going towards light instead of heat. And that just sort of speaks to how inefficient these are. And we talk about these all the time. So these are the LEDs that are the multicolor LEDs, or blurple LEDs as we call them. And so they'll definitely produce. I mean, as you can see, there's a nice plant here. But it's still an inefficient light, and you can really tell that when you're growing with it, sort of the difference in response to the plants, especially going into flower. And you can, if you look at even these ones that are underneath here, and it's not the same strain, so it's not a direct comparison, but in terms of the flower set, you're getting a lot more action over here in terms of let's see if I can get that to focus.
Oh yeah.
So I definitely feel like, it's going to produce, and is a much better option than this. As far as the spectrum goes, having it this much red, I don't know how much difference it makes, but I think this is, they call this the V2 spectrum or something like that. They have a whole little PDF document that shows you the breakdown of it. And they had this light professionally tested by a third party, and provided all the specs for it, like the whole report from the company. And so it's pretty cool. You can go through it and you can see number wise, it's definitely on par with any of the other big LEDs that we talk about. And so, it's I would say it's a legitimate contender for your commercial markets, just because it's a great fixture. It's heavy duty. The price range isn't out of control. I think the V2 lights are, right in that $1,500 price range. And so they have a couple of different versions, a lot like Spectrum King. They try and tweak it a little bit, but just the uniform coverage that you get from this setup, I really like. And so it's got a lot of positives. So I know, like I said, Roger, I know you asked about it before. Did you have any other questions about it?
It looks like it has like 288 lights in it, doesn't it?
What's the
It has a lot. I don't know.
What I wanted to ask was, that's just one fixture that both.
This whole thing is one fixture. That's correct.
One fixture, two. Well, that's a big for $1,500.
I believe that's about what it is. Don't quote me on it. I haven't gone to.
Well, I tell you what, there's going to be a lot of guys flip out if they can get that big ass light. That looks like a pretty big ass light for $1,500 when it comes to LEDs. It doesn't have as much of the white spectrum as I think we're starting to believe we'd like to see. Like you said, that's great you brought that up. But a lot of people tell them that they still believe you got to have red. So for those people that believe you got to have the white and the red, that'd be just, they cream all over that. For $1,500, you usually get a little tiny thing like you got in the corner over there.
Yeah. So that's
like, I'm not spending $1,500 to go 4x4 feet, man.
It easily covers the same area that two of these, of a smaller LED would. And so these over here, these are consuming 280 watts each. These Blurple ones over here, which I bought off of eBay like 3 years ago.
You sure it's not providing like 3 times as much area? To me, it looks like
that's probably close. It's at least double.
I'd say it's way more than that.
Yeah, and you can see how much more uniform coverage it is as well. So, this is 8 feet, and it's probably, I wouldn't say it covers quite half of it, but it does pretty well. I would say probably in like a 3x3 solid flowering area, and especially if you just got these in big rows, which is obviously what they're designed for. You can just set these up, and they're all passive heated and all that stuff we talked about. The other ones, how you can have cooling systems and air blowing over the top of them and not make them less efficient, like other, the big HID bulbs or HPS bulbs. All that same stuff we talked about with Spectrum King is gonna, apply here as well. So I think it'd be a great comparison too, to be able to do one of those Spectrum King lights versus one of these, because this is just a slightly red version, in a little bit different setup with the LEDs. As you mentioned, it's got more lights spread out more, and it's a little more not quite as compact as the Spectrum King, but I think it'd be interesting. I think we, even the guys from Spectrum King say, that there's no doubt that the spectrum matters, but intensity matters first. And I think it'd be an interesting comparison, because you'd have one with a much wider spectrum and one with a much redder spectrum. And a lot of guys, like Droma and a lot of those guys now are putting up red LEDs along with their white ones, to be able to have those, what they call them, flower initiators or something like that. You know what I'm talking about, Steve? I can't hear him at all.
Tommy's going to talk on it in a second.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, what?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Tommy, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I was just talking with Brandon from Spectrum King on the 730 nanometer. I was asking about the causing the girls to go to sleep at night, basically. And he says, yes, that's a good effect. He says, however, by having that 730 nanometer, and he talked about how you dial it in a little bit more than I'm just saying here. It's on the film I did. But he was saying how he can wind up with in the neighborhood of 20% better yield having that 730 nanometer, like basically full time in there.
Full time. So I know a lot of guys run them only, like at the beginning and the end of the cycle.
Correct.
So that's interesting that they run them pretty close.
And he runs it more intense then. He runs it more intense there, but he still keeps it going for the whole time.
That's interesting. Well, obviously these are just powered in with the rest of them, so it's
right.
It's
you
similar.
Need auxiliary. You need auxiliary, right?
What Brandon was saying was he kills the lights, so just the far red comes on in the beginning before the main light comes on.
That's
and then wakes the plants up. Then comes the main light on all the white. and then the white shuts off, and then only the red is on, and then they go to sleep when it's just that 720 nanometer, that far red, not combined. The combined doesn't have that same effect.
Right.
And it might be interesting too, because one of the issues I had with this LED that I didn't have with these other cheaper ones was that the intensity was so much brighter that I almost had to harden them off. I couldn't run them right underneath the light at first. It was actually intense enough to where it was like cooking leaves, and I hadn't had that experience with LEDs before, so that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, you can. For those people that don't know, you can actually absolutely cook your plants. Actually, Tommy, can you mute your mic a second for echo? 1 second. Okay, so now that I'm echoing, so what happens is if you have LED lights or even really high in HPS, you can basically bleach the shit out of your plants, and they'll turn white. And it'll look interesting, but it kills off the chlorophyll on the top. Now, having your VPD and your nutrients dialed in, they can actually tolerate a lot more, along with additional silica. But even then, the plants still have a threshold where they simply can't take any more light.
Right.
Yeah. As Tommy says, light poisoning.
Light poisoning. Well, see, I think the point that I just want to clarify that when LEDs came out, people thought they kind of had problems with that because they thought, well, it wasn't very hot, and they were putting LEDs too close. That's why also when you mentioned about the sways and guys putting them right down on top of there. Okay, well, I'm not going to go back onto that, but people were putting them. Everybody had to learn that even though it doesn't seem as hot, the LEDs still are putting out a light intensity that will fry your leaves.
And I think that it's a little bit misleading too, because like this LED over here, the plant literally grew up into it, and it maybe cooked one leaf. This thing over here, if the plant's not hardened off to it and you put it underneath it, it will cook the entire plant. Like out of my veg room, I just have some fluorescence in there, so it's not used to getting any of the intensity that you get out of this. So I never had an issue with these, even like super close to them. So it's a little bit misleading sometimes because people will go, oh, well, it's this with LED and oh, it's that with LED, when really these two things are drastically different. Like it's just not like they shouldn't even be in the same comparison. Like, yeah, they're LEDs, but you
kind of read my mind, because when you said they expected a side by side, well, that's not fair. They got this massive light over here, and then that little blue light over there. That's what we're seeing in the picture. You got this massive white and red light over here that's like lighting up. And look, you said how wide is that whole grow room?
Just need to see.
This is 8 feet right here, so you're looking at about 3 feet wide by 8 feet long, and there's only two plants here.
Okay. So that thing looks like 5 feet to 2 feet or something like that. Just looks massive in comparison. Yeah, I mean, it looks like two different places.
From here, all the way up back to there is 8 feet.
Yeah, and I got you.
This front corner here, all the way to the back, is a little over 3 feet.
So what you doing with the plants in between the two lamps in the dark zone over there?
That's just the overgrowth is growing in the middle. There's actually a couple of these that have grown over. So like this one right here, see that one? That's actually this plant over here to the right instead of the other one.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's just growing together. It's two plants. I don't even know how long I vegged these two for. It's it's been such a roller coaster with selling the house. It's like, oh, we're moving, and then, oh, we're not. And so, and I haven't had time to do anything, started a new job and all that stuff. So I don't even know how long I vegged them for, but it's definitely a fun little project to work on. But I probably don't have quite the time to put into it. Definitely like those ones back there should have been trained like, a week ago, and just been slacking. But obviously I'll trim off a bunch of this stuff and thin it out, and I won't keep all of this middle part. Like you can see where it's really crowded in here. That's all got to get thinned out. And so, but you know, hey, it's just for me. Not gonna fire myself. But I don't think it looks too bad.
What you need to do is you got to see if you can get a Spectrum King to loan you a light so you can do a proper grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about emailing them, and I just haven't done that either. And
I'm
yeah,
probably just gonna see both of them tomorrow. I'll just talk to them.
that'd be cool.
We'll see.
I should just hit him up. I'm sure if I just talk to him, they would be cool. And
I like Tommy's idea. We'll keep giving him more and more sublingual powder until he says yes.
more sublingual patterns. Okay.
We'll keep
I don't
giving
know
them
what that is.
edible powder until they can't say no.
Oh, right. That's right. Just straight up bribe them. I like it.
Yep.
It's the American way.
I know that they do occasionally do loaners for growers that have YouTube channels and stuff like that. They've been pretty cool with that. So
Yeah, that'd be cool. And then maybe BrayneGro feel a little bit better about loaning me this light for like 6 months now.
there you go.
But
Well, if you make good on the side by side, that's all they asked for, right? So.
well, I did post I finished off my last run with this light, the shishka berry. I had 2 shishka berry plants underneath it, I think, and so I put that up and did a little write up on the on this light when I first got it, and posted it, and they've had some people interested because of it. So I think it definitely paid off for them, you know, in the same way that, you know, Spectrum King got business off of coming on our show and going on other shows and doing their stuff. So it really produced great. Like the last 6 weeks were underneath this light, and it turned out really, really great. So I have high hopes for this. This is shishka berry again, so hopefully we should be able to see pretty similar results. This was supposed to be shishka berry, but I'm pretty sure it's Starfighter is kind of what I've decided at this point. But we'll see. Gonna let it finish growing out. The only thing that I do know for sure is that it's not shishka berry. But I would say 80% sure it's Starfighter. So we'll see how that goes. But either way, it'll be good smoke for sure.
Well, they got a real good ad tonight.
I had a guy.
Then I'm gonna do a grow from seed. So I just filmed the other day, I think day before yesterday. I haven't posted it yet, but starting all the seeds for a pheno hunt, so that hopefully I'll have some plants ready to go for they can move into the new property with me. So that'll be a fun little project to work on. While these finish up.
Be your last grow there, you hope, huh?
God, I hope so. Be nice to have more than just a couple of plants. I mean, I could have more in here right now, and I don't, just because out of my own laziness mostly. But and a lot being discouraged, I think too. It's kind of like everything's sort of set up for outdoor, and I kind of wanted to kind of wait and see how it went. I was hoping to maybe be into a place, you know, before outdoor this year, and that didn't happen. So, yeah, it is what it is. I think I'm just grateful to have what I have. I'm sure I'll get plenty of smoke out of this, and hopefully get into the next place and grow lots of trees.
You firing up the behemoth? Have you seen this thing, Marty?
Yeah, I see it. That looks like a beast.
Looks like it should be on top of a car motor.
I'd do that too. Yeah, try and turn this thing around again.
I'm jealous.
Yep. Gotta love dab rings. Use them in a hotel room and not piss off the hotel staff. Doesn't stink your room up. about the only time you can use a bong in a hotel room without pissing off the hotel staff.
What, when it's bigger than them?
Yeah, you just gotta make it big enough to where they're afraid of being bludgeoned with it. It works every time.
Just aim it at them. Hell, that would scare them enough.
Yeah, I'll use my death ray. Oh, Lordy.
It's a big cannon, mister. What have you been up to, Hogmaster?
Started 6 new seeds here the other day and still got my OG going and my Amnesia Haze. Just working it, man. Built me a new grow room. I got a 6x10 area, so it's nice to have the extra room. That's my flower room. So
Yeah, it's a nice space. 6x10 is a real nice space. You can do some damage in that.
oh, I plan on it. I'm sure I'll be yelled at whenever she figures it out.
Anything else?
Nope, just working on the forum and at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com and just doing my thing, man.
We had I want to do a shout out to the guys in the University of Virgin Islands, UVI. A lot of people know that they founded the commercial aquaponics model. Their farm was ridiculously damaged by Maria this week. And I just want to give a shout out to them. Donald Bailey has not been able to post online, but he is okay. I know he hasn't been able to post yet. I know a lot of people are worried about him, so I want to let them know about that. Charlie Schultz was able to get a hold of him, and he posted over on UVI. But the farm is heavily damaged. And then one of the guys that Charlie and I have both talked to in Puerto Rico or worked with in a way, or another, them and then the other project that I was working with, both of their farms were basically all but destroyed. So that really sucked. I know you guys saw I had a pretty cool Reddit post a couple months ago when they were getting pretty close to completion on the construction of that. And that's all just gone. So that was really kind of depressing. But
That's too bad.
yep, well, it is what it is. You build in the tropics. It's going to happen eventually. It just is what it is.
Yeah, they got wiped out down there. It's pretty bad. There's a lot of people, shoot, from Texas to Florida down in the tropics. It's crazy. I mean, man, it's just crazy as shit. We got this other one that's going to be right off our coast this weekend. It's supposed to be okay, but it's right there.
Sure what
you never know.
Do, yeah.
Yeah, they don't tend to always do what they think they're going to do. So, you know, the fact that it's there.
That one that ripped through Florida wasn't supposed to hit Florida originally either. It was supposed to go out the coast the same way.
Well, they changed that back and forth. It was supposed to hit us directly. Then it was supposed to go under Florida completely. Then it was back to hitting us directly. And then it went back and it decided to go under Florida. And then right as it got, well, it was because the high pressure front was stronger than they anticipated. The one that was pushing it and holding it down, it was colder than they thought. And I mean, it was cold as hell. I mean, not cold as hell, but for
summertime
over on the East Coast in the summer, it was freaking cold. And then the hurricane, you know, so you felt that. And then when the hurricane, it pinned it down. And then as soon as it hit that warm water off on the Gulf of Mexico, it went crazy north and it ripped up. I know people that are all along that line on the Gulf Coast, a few people, and you know I've been to a lot of places that got tore up. And Alabama got it, not Alabama, but it went right up through the Panhandle and a little bit of Alabama. I'm not really sure how bad. I hadn't heard much, but we got an ass load of damage on the city side, on the coast. The city, Charleston is still Charleston and the Barrier Islands and some of them. I mean, Edisto Island got hammered again. I mean, it's just, I mean, these are places where people live, kind of like, it's not a whole lot different than, like, Bermuda or somewhere. It's a little island off the coast, and they were talking about some bar where, that, like, there's so few people even going there. It's so devastated that people aren't even driving out there even after the hurricane. Usually they'll go out. It's like a ghost town out there. So yeah, people don't realize how much, and I'm sure we're not the only place. I don't really know about Savannah as much, how that impacted them, but people don't realize how much it was so big. See, when it was going through Florida, it was hitting us. The outer bands were hitting us, if you know what I mean. In northern Florida, around the Panhandle, that storm was so big it was covering Alabama and Louisiana and Georgia and South Carolina, all at the same time. People didn't, we don't usually see them like that. This was very, very different. Of course, I don't believe in global warming. That's just bullshit. This is a thing. This is a God event.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
The climate so bad that. No, I'll tell you what. Though,
people that don't believe in global warming, you should be over here on the East Coast.
You don't believe in global warming. Like, seriously, you're just completely fucking moron. Dude, look, we've all been around for a long time. Do you guys ever remember hurricanes going from a tropical storm to a category 3 or 5, like almost instantly? This shit didn't happen before. Not like this. Yes, they'd still get like that, but it would go from category 1, maybe a day or two, then in category 2, and then in a category 3. None of this like boom,
or 3 in a row either.
Yeah, and Houston, the one that hit Houston, right, went from a tropical storm to a category 5 in like 36 hours. That shit never happened before. So to try and say that this stuff isn't happening right now, and look at what it's caused. People are dying. It's caused billions of dollars worth of damage. And who's paying for it now? Taxpayers, not the companies that caused it.
Oh yeah, everybody's fucking socialist now.
Yep. Socialist.
It's all about the.
Glad. Welcome to the good side. We're glad to have you. You need to stick around for a few more topics besides fucking hurricanes and the military. Because yes, the military is also socialism.
Yes, them and their HARP machine.
But nobody wants to talk about that.
But it all is about the temperature of the water off the coast of South Africa, and that's where that keeps rising. The storms are going to get bigger. It's because of the temperature of the water off of South Africa. So,
calling you out, Alex Jones. I'm calling you out.
Who's Alex Jones? Oh, by the way, we got any visitors tonight? I don't know who Alex Jones is right offhand. Sorry to be ignorant about that.
The Lord.
A what?
Oh. Alex Jones is a crazy nutbag. Like, I don't even know. Like, I would tell you to Google it, but I like you too much. Like, just don't even bother.
I try not to pay attention to nutbag, so that's why I don't know who he is. Okay.
Funny enough, my old work, the Aquaponic Source, actually, I don't know if they still do, but they used to advertise on Alex Jones regularly. So,
well,
I think it's really funny now.
Cards watch that show all the time. It seems like a great place to advertise, especially if you're selling shit. Like,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. After they started advertising on there when I worked there, which is right near the end, it was really funny. Like some of the phone calls we'd get, and then like people that wanted to send like anonymous checks with no return address in order to pay for shit, and they just they mail us a letter with no return address filled with cash, and like all kinds of just like, I can tell you this never arrived.
Like, Aquaponics is super popular with conspiracy theorists, like preppers, like basically guys that listen to Alex Jones, who says the world is on the brink of nuclear war every other 36 seconds. And
the Christian cult or whatever, the sect of Christianity or whatever, same shit.
Zombies, the gay frog.
The thing saying that this weekend is the apocalypse. It's September 23rd. That's the
freaking frog's gay, man.
These people need to smoke more weed. Clearly.
I know. I read that today about the September 23rd.
Yeah, come on.
I
Oh, hey,
read
did
the
you
thing
guys,
about smoke more weed today.
Did you guys see Olivia Newton-John talking about her medical cannabis use?
I did. That was great.
Yeah, that was awesome. I thought to have, such a great spokesperson for,
Our parents.
medical cannabis. Like she used it to, she talked about how she used it and all that stuff. I think it was, it was pretty cool. You guys YouTube it up if you want. It's actually been on Australian TV quite a few times, but they finally decided to air it once in the middle of a week on the Today Show over here. So I'm sure they're not doing their best to spread it, but at least it's out there. And I think there was maybe a 60 Minutes interview or something like that is either out or came out. But anyway, she talks about, because this is her second battle with cancer, and she talks about, the second time around having cannabis and using it medically. And I just thought it was pretty cool interview. And,
that is cool.
Yeah. So check that
Let
out
her
if
on
you
the
haven't.
show.
Yeah. Go, Steve. Work your magic.
Hey. We still have Ed Rosenthal on. I guess his schedule might not make it for this month, but he will be
Next
on.
week, Steve gets a restraining order.
I've been contacting him every week, and he's not able to do this week. He wasn't able to do this week, which is why I tried to get the Vortex going. And then next week we have the guy from Teaming with Microbes, which, if you're upset about that one, then you can no longer be a panelist.
Who'd be upset about
Dead
that?
silence.
That's how you learn. That's where the magic happens.
So Lowenfalls, huh?
The pools of microbes. So that's, we got them coming up. We got some other cool guests coming up. I talked to some other people. Swami is going to come on. He has his podcast. We're going to do some kind of collaborative thing with our podcast together. That'll be really cool. So.
Hey, how did Dude Grows' 315 grow turn out? Wasn't he doing a 315 grow last time he was on?
I'm not sure. I'll have to ask him. Speaking of which, I forgot to announce the Dude Grows Cup. They're doing a West Coast Cup on October 7th. If you go to their website, you can RSVP. It's only $25. And that'll be really cool. So anyone that's interested in going to that, I'm going to do my best to be up there. I should be there, barring anything crazy coming up. And,
I thought you were teaching in class.
What's that?
I thought you were teaching in class.
October 7th.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then Marty and I have the Aquaponic Cannabis class this weekend. If you guys are interested in taking the online class, be sure to check out our website. Let us know, and you can sign up there, read more about it. And then I talked about in the beginning of the show. Just wanted to reiterate that again, just because Marty brought it up. And what else? Oh, here. Gates Farm says, Marty, are you doing aquaponics in your room?
What?
Are you doing aquaponics in your grow room from chat?
Yes. This is dual root zone aquaponics. So you can see, I'll move this down a little bit. You can see this. I just turned a bunch of shit, so there's a whole bunch of stuff on here. But this is media here. And a pot here that's got soil in it down to maybe about an inch above the media here. Then it's got media in the bottom of the pot. And so the pot is down in far enough to get water into the bottom. So the bottom of the pot where the media is floods with water along with the rest of the bed. And that's where, primarily gets fed. These beds are always filling and draining. I have an external siphon. And I think I have about 8 koi indoor goldfish in the tank right now, including Donald Trump.
So You've done a couple runs with and without dual root zone and all kinds of stuff. What do you think of that compared to running without it, and what are your opinions on it now after having done both ways?
Well, I think that it definitely adds, benefit. It's definitely more work setting up each plant. One of the things I liked about doing non-dual root zone was that you basically just stick the plant in and you're good to go. It's just like other aquaponics stuff. There's not really anything to do that. But as you can see, when my plant count got drastically reduced, I wanted to spread the plant out more, and training it to the net requires a more solid base. Or else what happens is this can't support it. So instead of training over to the net the way we want it to, it just ends up straightening out and turning sideways like this. So it's not training to the net. It'll just straighten itself out and start growing diagonally. And so training becomes a little bit more tedious and that isn't quite as effective. And also outdoors, if you deal with any kind of wind, it's very beneficial to have them in the dual root zone pots. Numerous times when I didn't have them in dual root zone outdoors, the wind would push them over at an angle in the same way. I never got any real damage from it, but it just seemed like undue stress, that probably didn't need. And when I did dual root zone, didn't have that problem the next year. So I would say that in addition to that, if you I've experimented a little bit with smaller and bigger dual root zones, so like larger pots and smaller pots. And so you can go with larger pots and, basically put more amendments into your soil and not have to feed them as often. Or maybe even, for the most part, even through an entire run, I don't do too much through the top unless I see a deficiency or the plant starts looking off. I'll hit them with some worm tea on the top. And then right when they start flowering, I'm going to come in and drop some compost here on the top. And you'll notice I have some room here. I don't know if you guys can really see, but there's maybe about that much room in my pot here that I can still fill up with compost from out in my worm bin. So I'll top that off, and probably tomorrow or Saturday, depending on how my day goes. But so I'll just harvest those and do that. So you can definitely, I would say, go longer periods without having to feed anything. As opposed to if you don't have dual root zone, you're probably going to have to hit it with tea at least like 3 times a week in order to keep up with enough nutrients for it to really do what you want to do. But I've had great success with it, especially outdoors with non-dual root zone. And I had success with dual root zone. So for me, I feel like it's definitely beneficial in other ways. So I go ahead and do it. If I had a huge plant count, like if I was doing like, 900 plants or something like that, I might consider not doing dual root zone. If it was like in a greenhouse in perfect conditions and I knew I was going to be able to produce enough tea or ferments and have it integrated like that, then I would say there might be a benefit of not doing it simply because you wouldn't have to spend as much time per plant in more like a sea of green style as opposed to larger dual root zone plants. So those are kind of my dual root zone thoughts.
So if you were doing sea of green, you would go ahead and just plant that without the dual root zone?
Well, I would consider it, or I've thought about doing like a whole dual root zone bed.
That makes sense.
Might be pretty cool, because then you could do essentially the same thing. You wouldn't have to do the whole entire plant thing. You could set up a whole bed and plant up a whole bed with plants and cut down on the amount of work, but still get the same advantage of a dual root zone.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the way you described the pots. A lot of people are wondering. You've shown that before. And see, it's kind of a little different than what I actually thought you were doing. But now, so what you're saying, I just want to clarify this for everybody too. So what you're saying is your pot if Marty, you could show me that picture of your pot setup in your hydroton there, and yeah, oh, sorry, yeah, because it was so. All right, yeah. So what you're saying is the part of the pot that submerged inside of that, but inside that pot that's submerged, that's the same amount of hydroton in the bottom. So it soaks it up and lets it go, and the soil's on top of that to fill up the rest of the pot, right?
Yeah, so this is sunk down in. You can see if I match up the height, you can see this pot goes all the way down into the bed. So the water floods in through the holes here in the bottom of the pot.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about, I mean, it definitely gets roots outside, but you don't have to worry about it. But the important thing is to make sure that you have media all the way up above so that your soil isn't wicking up, especially if you're using fabric pots. You probably need to do it even higher because they tend to wick a lot more than anything else.
You put Tommy to sleep.
So like the bottom half of the, just to finish up, so the bottom half of the pot's filled with hydroton, just like the bed, right?
Yep.
And that's what keep right, and then you let it to flood up to there, and then you keep your soil above that. So half of that, basically half of that's filled with hydroton.
Yep, and then I have a little separator that goes in here.
So you put a strainer kind of thing, or like a little grow cloth or whatever, you know.
Yeah, you can use burlap, or like if that's weed cloth. I've used lots of different stuff, but basically you're just using you're looking for a separator.
You just hold something to hold the particles up from going down in there.
And still be permeable. You want roots to be able to get through. You don't want it to be, like this weed cloth here is probably about as tight as I would want it to go. And I even usually I'll poke a few good sized holes in it just so that I know there's some spots to get some good tap roots down. And I honestly don't worry about it too much if I, especially if your media in your pod is up high enough, a little bit getting down through at first isn't, it's going to settle out and pack in and get so packed with roots before too long that you would have a tough time really flushing much out of there anyway. So
even in the whole bed itself, it would be hard for that to move all the way and come through the drains, and just a small filtration thing at the bottom of your drain would pretty much keep you from having that sediment go through. So okay. Now, that's cool. I'm sure you guys talked about that before, but clarifying it right there's a lot of people out there going, I can't figure it out. And I think we just gave them that last little tidbit right there.
This is all set up so that we can do that in class this weekend. We'll build a dual root zone pot. So
right. That's really cool. It's a great class.
I think Marty has a video on dual root zone and how to plant them and set them up, and then I know I have one on my channel as well. So
yep, there's one on my YouTube channel, and there's about 3 different versions on my Patreon if you want to check that out.
Cool. One of these days I'll actually get to go watch those. You said do it when you're cleaning your house, and I haven't done that in a while, so I never have time to listen to the podcast or anything like that. I'm always doing stuff, but I can't. That's great though. Both these guys have that explanations in detail on their channels and stuff like that. That's pretty cool. And where are you doing that class? Let me segue y'all back. Marty mentioned the class. Where are y'all doing that class? Well, you want to plug that again so more people can get there?
Sure. So you can take it online via YouTube. We'll send you a link. You gotta pay for the class. And then if you want to come in person, you can come on to Ouroboros Farms in Half Moon Bay. It's right off of 94, I think it is, 92. They're just outside of Half Moon Bay. So
that's right.
To come in person, and you're in near San Francisco.
I thought you were doing it at Ouroboros. That's why I wanted to bring that up, because I didn't think you mentioned that earlier. You were just that's what I meant. Where is it at? You're hosting it at Ouroboros, and you're going to have an online video also on YouTube.
Later, we're working on a teaching in Las Vegas I'm talking to
That's
people right
cool.
now. So we doing a class in Vegas, and then also in hopefully next year in April we might be doing one in Jamaica. So if you guys want to have kind of come on a cool weed vacation, see a farm or 2 or 5 in Westmoreland, smoke some really cool weed in Jamaica, and come to a class down there along with a pretty cool conference. We don't have any more details yet, but we're trying to see if we can get this event together down there, which will be really cool. That'll have some announcements in the weeks to come. So that'll be a lot of fun. There's a lot of people that have always wanted to go down there and, stand in a field of weed, and we'll be able to do that. If this all
Yeah, man,
goes
it'd be cool if Ouroboros could have some plants there. That's kind of well, we do the best we can, so we sort of patch into here in our to do different stuff, and I can show the plants that I have here so that we can get an idea of that. But it'd be cool to do that in like an actual producing garden in the same way that that you guys do there for your commercial aquaponic stuff for fruit and veggies. I think that
saying too
there's
much, we'll be able to do that here sometime between January and March.
That'd be sweet.
Sure.
So.
That'd be real good. That'd be great.
You might even be in Oregon. Shh.
Actually, it might be in both. So
we'll see.
Fingers
crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll have to alternate classes between the 2 states.
But the online is fun. Being able to switch back and forth and sort of we try to get the commercial aspect there, and then we show a little bit more of the homegrown style stuff here. And we get a mix of people. Some people are there to because they want to plant a commercial farm, and some people just want to grow medicine for their cousin. So it kind of depends on, or themselves, or maybe they just like to get high. So having a homegrown aspect to it is beneficial too.
That's great. So you're combining like a commercial style classes with ability to have a homegrown setup, like from the simplest setups to the most complicated and automated and everything. Yeah, I see Steve nodding. Good. That's better than your microphone.
We try to balance both, because really we get people from people that have never grown a pot plant before or done aquaponics, all the way to people that are commercial aquaponics experts but never done cannabis, to people that have been growing cannabis for 30 plus years. We had a guy in the last class that had been growing cannabis for over 50 years that was in the class, and he was taking notes all the time. So we were trying to make it interesting no matter what skill level you are.
Right.
If you're a newbie, it might be a little bit information dense, but you're going to have a good foundation. You're going to have a real good understanding of it. A little bit might be a lot much to take in at once, but you'll have all the information to reference. And it'll it's definitely beneficial if it's something you're looking to do.
That's great. That's great.
And then if you're an expert, we can sit there and nitpick and talk detail and talk about exact numbers and all kinds of fancy stuff.
Like the fancy stuff.
We have Gates asks, how many days are those ladies into flower or veg? Marty.
What's that?
Where are those at in their flower cycle?
Oh, these are probably like a little over 2 weeks, like 2.5 weeks, maybe, something like that. I think somewhere in there, 2.5 weeks ish. That's the number now. I just made it up.
So it's 2 to 3 weeks flower right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It says, are you using a super soil?
Am I using what?
Super soil.
I am using basically what would be considered Coots mix maybe like 3-year-old coots mix that I re-amend with my own compost, redworm compost.
So there you go. And you have a video about your redworm compost on your channel?
Yep. And I have of course I do. And
well, that's what. I want to make sure everybody can go, oh, okay, we just go to Marty's channel and find out about his compost now, too.
So this is a 2-bucket worm bin that I built for my Patreon account, so you can watch the build video for this on there. But it's two buckets that go together, and we'll go over this in depth also in the class this weekend. But this is basically like a little kitchen composter, or what I use it for is all the scraps and stuff, like all the stuff I just cut off, I just throw back into here, and then throw a little soil, but recycled soil on top of it, and so that's got red worms in it, and you can feed it just about anything. I feed it kitchen scraps, banana peels, apple cores, all kinds of different stuff, grapes.
What worms like?
They'll eat anything. Leaves, like I said, the stuff I cut off here, any plant material, lawn cuttings, any stuff. Only thing you gotta be careful with stuff that you get in from outside is that you don't want to bring in any bugs that you don't want. So, if you're gonna use something like your lawn cuttings, I'd just recommend like submerging it in water for like 24 hours or so before you feed it. And just so, like I would put it in a burlap bag or something like that and soak it completely submerged so that you don't have any bugs that can survive. And then pretty much anything's fair game after that. They'll eat just about anything. Like stuff, I get a lot of like old tomato leaves and stuff that come off as my tomato plants get taller. So the ones towards the base start to vine out. The ones towards the bottom will fall off. So any of that stuff, I feed it to the worms and try to feed it back. So leftovers from my ferments or making labs, they like to eat the curds off the top if you make labs. They love to eat that stuff. What else can you feed them? I mean, just about anything. Corn husks. There's lots of great stuff that you normally just throw away that is great worm food, great plant food.
So you could almost have if you had enough trash, you could start a little worm farm. Keep it going.
So that's do you ever notice certain varieties don't do well? I would say, at least in my experience, around 5% of strains that have tried to go in aquaponics just don't seem to like it, even in dual root zone. Well, dual root zone is probably a little less, but I did find there's a small minority of strains that just hate being that wet in their feet.
So I've grown quite a few different strains now, and I would say I haven't found any of them that I would say didn't like it or didn't do well, but some of them get a little bit more picky in terms of like if your pH swings a little bit more, which can happen in aquaponic systems. Some of them really won't like it. Some of them will just might curl up a little bit. And not, bounce back and not really be a big deal. But some of them will drop nearly every damn leaf they have before they bounce back, even though they do. But so I would say some of them are more sensitive when it comes to pH swings, or maybe nitrogen spikes. I had what was I growing? I think it was Fruit Punch or something like that. Some weird strain that I got from a local guy here, and it took a long time to finish, and I think it was probably because it didn't like the amount of nitrogen that it had, because it just seemed to flower really slowly. I think it took like 14 weeks altogether for it to finally finish. It was really cool, smelled really good, and turned almost like this blackish purple color. But it just took a long time to finish. So those would be probably my only two suggestions, I guess, about strains. Is that some of them will do that. So I think Shishka berry, this one that I'm growing here, is a little bit sensitive into pH, and fruit punch, which was more like I think it was more of a sativa plant.
Most likely took 14 weeks.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Well, I don't know that it should have, though. I think that might have been, like I said, the sensitivity to nitrogen spiking.
That's interesting, because I've had plants take forever to finish, and especially sativas, and I've always wondered about that. It's funny you say nitrogen, although I really cut that. I from having the greenhouse, I actually manipulate my nutrients so that I have less nitrogen, and not too much nitrogen in general. I mean, I really try to watch that. But it's funny you bring up that it might be a nitrogen spiker. Just, well, do you think that let me ask you this. Do you think because that it's pH sensitive, do you think it's because the spike of pH causes stresses the plant enough to slow down the production to allow it to finish?
Well, it affects mineral uptake. If your pH is off by a lot, you're not going to uptake the minerals into the plant at the right rate.
But why would that slow down finish time, though?
Because you're not inputting nutrients at the proper level. The issue is that when nitrogen gets too high, it slows down how much the plant can flower and the speed that the plant flowers, and it makes for a larvier bud that's less dense. And, well, depending on how the extreme, it can do as little as just stretching out how long your flower takes to finish. It can also, if it's too high, make it larvae and it will never dense up.
Larvae, yeah. Okay.
Now sometimes it just extends the length of it. Again, it just depends on the strain. Every strain's different. You really need to run a strain 3 or 4 times before you can really get the feel of what it's going to do and all that.
I agree. I like it. I've always found that. I think I was going to mention that a few weeks ago, and somehow we got sidetracked. But I have found that once you're about your third time when you got clones, and you cloned it and cloned it and cloned it, now all of a sudden it seems like you've got a handle in the plant. And part of it's, I think, accepting the environment for the plant to adapt to the environment it's growing in too. But you also manipulate that, and you see what, like you say, if it gets larvae, so you really watch the nitrogen in flower next time and make sure you drop that down, and not at the expense of others. But yeah, that's a real good point. Thank you for clarifying that for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Well,
so,
go ahead.
What was that, Steve? I can hear you.
What are you saying? Good.
Oh, so yeah, I don't know if you guys have any other questions about the dual root zone or any of that, but I got to take off here in a minute. Get some sleep. Got work in the morning.
It's almost 11 Pacific time, so poor East Coasters.
That's all right. And for me, I got to wake up early and drag my ass to IT work.
Yeah.
Hey, well, man.
Go to the weed convention, so.
That was pretty cool about that. Thank you, guys. I'm sure everybody's excited about all the classes you did. And yeah, I think it's time to say goodbye to everybody.
Can't believe we still squeezed in a normal length show. My intention was just to come on and do a 30 to 45 minute show, and we still did a normal length show, and we got a bunch of you guys to show up. So
you're only going 5 miles an hour. So you've been going 5 miles an hour the whole time. So.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'll get you later.
Marty, why don't you tell people how to find you in your Patreon?
So, my channel is AP Meds on YouTube, and you can check me out there. We have Aquaponic Cannabis Growers Group on Facebook, which Steve and I and a couple other guys admin. My Patreon is patreon.com/APMeds. Which is basically just a lot more how to build videos and more like I guess like an ongoing class. Every once in a while, I post videos of whatever's going on. So like my last one was amending dual root zone soil. So going through and adding in a couple of amendments from like down to earth that we talked about here, like langbronite and some humic acid, granular humic acid, and mixing that up and so the mixture that I make to put here in the top of the dual root zone. So yeah, it's like 1 or 3 or $10 a month, depending on what level you would like. But you can check out the videos, like all the how-to videos and stuff, for just $1. So if you guys want to check that out, you can. And we got the class coming up this weekend, which Steve will put the link in the description to, so you guys can check that out. And we'll be going through a lot of the same stuff we talked about here. Like I got the dual root zone pot set up and the worm bin, and we'll go through and look a little bit more at these flowers as they're developing in different stages. So yeah, lots of fun stuff.
Sounds great.
Cool. What about you, Hogmaster? How do people find you?
You can find me on the forums at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com. If you need anything, we're here from start to finish.
So, Tommy passed out. You can check him out at Old Fart Grows. He'll have some cool.
We can see where to find Tommy right there in that bed.
Yeah, he's right there in that bed over there.
He's right there in that bed.
It was that new evil device you have.
Oh yeah, he did a dab and he was lit as fuck. And it was all.
I want to give a big shout out to my Clemson Tigers, who whooped Louisville's ass and held the Heisman Trophy winner from last year and confused him and just made him shake at the end of the game. And they're probably #1 in the nation in college football this week. And if they're not, they should be. Performance. Go Tigers.
Where do we find you, Roger?
You just come on over and, I'm running around running ilovegrowingmarijuana.com, and you find me by asking for me. Hogmaster knows how to find me. If you get on there and you can't find me, because I don't post as much as some of the other people, because I've got other things that I'm doing and answering blog questions. You can come to the blog at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com and make a comment on any of our 500 articles, and I'd answer your grow question. So you can find me there. You can walk around the hellhole swamp and see if you can find me over here. I'm over here in the swamp. That's about it.
I did talk to BrayneGro. He'll hopefully be back next week. He was hoping to
Cool.
be back this week, but he wasn't able to make it back in time. But he will be hopefully back next week. He just had some jobs training. I guess that's coming to a close or almost concluded, and then he'll be on. Oh, look who woke up. What's up, Twinkle Toes?
Okay, then. Well,
let him sleep. But yeah, so he'll be back. And then if you guys are interested, you can find me at potentponics.com if you want to come out and meet in person this weekend, or borosfarms.com. And I think that's it for the show tonight. Oh, YouTube is Potent Ponics if you listen to this on SoundCloud. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good evening.
See ya.
Take care.
good night. Next week.